Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military of a Summary channel, and this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. During this video we're going to discuss the latest developments in the Middle East conflict. The United States of America are trying to make their final decision how exactly they're going to resolve this issue with Iran, whether they're going to use bunker bombs or they're going to attack the leader of Iran. Another important update are coming from the territory of Ukraine. The Russians during the previous 12 hours managed to improve their position significantly, and during the previous 12 hours we got lots of videos how the Ukrainians are trying to improve their positions and how the Ukrainians are trying to improve their supply and support lines. As we discussed in the previous videos, the next stage of the special military operation is going to be the battle of the engineering forces. So let's start from the beginning, let's start in details, and first let's talk about the Middle East. Let's start with this article added to map. Satellite images show Iran racing to get its oil out. Iran urgently removes oil due to strike threat. Satellite images show that Tehran has urgently increased oil exports. Tankers are loaded at the Khark terminal and immediately sail away. The island's storage facilities are full, which may indicate Tehran's desire to get as much oil onto the world market as possible while it is still possible, Bloomberg notes. Thus, according to tanker trackers, in the 5 days after the start of Israeli strikes on June 13, Iran exported an average of 2.33 million barrels per day, 44% more than the average. So as you can see, the Iranians are trying to get as much as possible money, because obviously if the United States of America join this special operation, the Iranians gonna have to need lots of money. At the same time, we got reports that the United States of America continued their evacuation of the most important assets around the state of Iran. The U.S. State Department has begun evacuating its personnel from Baghdad in anticipation of American strike on Iran. So now let's discuss this possible strike of Iran. The United States of America has a lot of options how to do this, and of course the most probably interesting option is that the United States of America are going to attack the Iranian positions with the most powerful non-nuclear bomb. So US prepares to strike world's most powerful non-nuclear bomb to destroy nuclear facility. We are talking about the 330-ton GBU-57A, a massive ordnance penetrator, the so-called bunker buster. This is a super heavy precision bomb capable of penetrating hundreds of meters of fortified underground facilities. The main target in the Iranian side in Fordo, built into a mountain range. This is exactly what MOP was designed for. The US may use B-2 Spirit stealth bomber to deliver the munition. So this is very interesting information, but we need to understand one important thing. And let's rewind the updates by the 19th of June of 2025. And if you remember, yesterday the president of the Russian Federation made lots of very interesting statements, and there was one key statement regarding the situation in the Middle East. The president of Russia stated that there are many underground facilities in Iran. Most have not been affected at all, which means that the use of GBU-57 bomb on the positions on energy facilities in the area of Fordo will not resolve the main issue of the United States of America. They will not resolve or allow the Americans and the Israelis to get the target and their task, to finish the task, to destroy the entire nuclear program of Iran, because there are many underground nuclear facilities, and the United States of America gonna have to use many, maybe hundreds of bombs of GBU-57, which means that they will suffer losses during this operation. At the same time, US does not rule out using tactical nuclear weapons to strike Iran's Fordo nuclear facility. A White House spokesman told Fox that the Air Force has no doubts about the effectiveness of a bunker bombs to destroy Iran's Fordo uranium enrichment plant, but that all options are not off the table for use against Tehran nuclear facilities. And this is, of course, there are lots of positive and negative sides from this strike, but we need to understand another important thing, that this attack on the Fordo nuclear facility, Fordo nuclear enrichment plant, will open the box of Pandora, because this will allow the Russians, starting from this moment, to begin attacking and bombing, for example, nuclear facilities of Ukraine. And obviously everybody in the world, especially in the European Union and the United States of America, understand this. So that is why the United States of America prepared prepared another plan with the Israelis, and they decided maybe not to attack the Iranian nuclear enrichment plants, but to try to get the leader of Iran. We are talking about Ali Khamenei. And for example, during the previous 12 hours, we got lots of videos how the Israelis began bombing and attacking possible bunkers of possible location of Ali Khamenei. For example, in this video, we can see a powerful explosion as a result of an Israeli strike occurred in the area of Tehran, where the bunker of Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei is located. And this is not the only video from this area. We have lots of videos how exactly the Israelis were bombing and attacking this territory. Obviously, this is also an option for them, and this is not something that out of a table. So, but this situation and this possible strike can also open the box of Pandora, because this attack can allow the Russians, and not just the Russians, but every single state in the world, to attack the leaders of their opponents. For example, Russia, after attack on Ali Khamenei, will be able to begin their attacks on, let's say, the president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky. They basically will start hunting him. Furthermore, the Russians don't recognize Zelensky as a legitimate president, so they have even more chances to finish this task. At the same time, don't forget about China, because they also have a lot of enemies in the world. And of course, we're talking about the situation, not just enemies, but problems in the world, especially in the territory of Taiwan. The assassination of Khamenei can open the gates for the Chinese to begin their own operations against the leaders of Taiwan. So this is also not an option for the United States of America, and basically currently they can't do anything with this. They can't make their final decision. They are still thinking, trying to understand which option is better, which option is not good for them. So that is why we got reports that, according to information we have, White House stated that Trump to make decision on strike on Iran within 2 weeks. So first we had, let's say, information that Trump will make a decision in 12 hours, then in 24 hours, then again in 12 hours. And now we got report that the White House postponed their decision for another 2 weeks. Maybe this is just a game. Maybe this is just, let's say, a way how to trick the Iranians and the Russians and the Chinese. Maybe this upcoming weekend, the United States of America will make their final attack. Nobody knows for sure, but obviously the situation is also very interesting. Anyway, let's wait and see what is going to be next. But at the same time, we see that both the Iranians and the Israelis are attacking each other. And for example, today the Israelis reported that the Iranians still have possibilities to attack the territory of Israel for another 5 months. So they have enough of missiles to continue this pace of attack for another 5 months. And obviously, this is something like the biggest war of attrition that the Israelis have ever faced, or will face, have ever faced since the beginning of the creation of the state, obviously. So let's wait and see what is going to be next. As for now let's move further. Let's discuss the situation in Ukraine. During the previous 24 hours, as we discussed, the Russians managed to improve their position significantly, but not everywhere. According to information we have, during the previous 12 hours, the Ukrainians carried out several counterattacks in the Sumy Oblast, and as a result of Ukraine counterattacks, they managed to restore control over the settlement by the name of Varachina. This information was provided by neutral mappers, and several pro-Ukrainian experts report about this also. So Ukrainians, we discussed the situation because for some reason the Russians almost stopped in this area. Everybody expected that the Russians would continue their offensive operation with the purpose to establish control over even the city of Sumy, but for some reason, after the fall of the first defense layer, the Russians stopped almost completely. And now the Ukrainians decided to counterattack to check what is the status of Russian defense, whether the Russians are able to hold their lines if Ukrainians begin their own counterattacks. Anyway, let's wait and see what is going to be next in this direction, but obviously, even if the Russians are planning to move further in the southern directions towards the city of Sumy, obviously they are going to start doing this only after the North Koreans will arrive in this area, and when the North Koreans will begin building and creating the defense nets around the main supply lines of the armed forces of the Russian Federation, because without secured lines, the Russians have no chances to continue moving further in the direction of the city of Sumy itself. Now let's talk about the Kupyansk direction. We got report that Ukrainians intensified their evacuation of their repair shops from the eastern bank of the river Oskol in the Kupyansk direction. The Russians during the previous days and since the beginning of June we have been bombing heavily the main supply lines along the river Oskol, and basically the Russians destroyed every single river crossing, every single pontoon bridge in this area, and the Ukrainians currently have lots of problems with supplying and supporting their forces and repair shops on the eastern bank of the river Oskol. So that is why the Ukrainians decided to remove every single repair shop from one side of the river to another. This will allow them to secure their roads, to secure their vehicles, and to have better chances to hold their lines for as long as possible. During the previous 12 hours, according to information we have, the Russians bombed heavily the city of Izum. This city is located basically in the Barovo or the Liman direction, exactly in those areas where the Russians are trying to advance right now. According to information we have, in Izum, Kharkiv region, 10 guided air-to-air missiles hit ammunition depots of the armed forces of Ukraine. Several explosions were recorded. Now let's talk about the situation in the area of Constantinople, where the Russians continue their offensive operation. The most important updates are coming from the settlement of Alexandra Kalinova. I would like to remind you that during the previous days, the Russians managed to improve their position significantly, and the most important that during the previous days, the Russians entered the village itself, its southern part, and basically about to finish or about to secure this territory completely. So I would like to remind you that just yesterday we got reports about this Russian progress on the ground, and based on the video that was published yesterday, we adjusted this territory in Russian favor, and in this video we can see how Russians were attacking the village of Alexandra Kalinova using lots of huge number of vehicles and infantry. The Russians landed in this area and took under control several positions. And today, according to different mappers, the Russians continue this process, and several tree lines to the east of the settlement were taken by the Russians as well. Furthermore, several pro-Russian resources reported that the entire southern part of the village of Alexandra Kalinova was secured by the Russians completely. Anyway, this is very important progress on the ground, and starting on the 20th of June, the Russians began publishing lots of videos that confirms complete Russian control over this pocket and the creation of the operational encirclement. As we discussed in the previous videos, the Ukrainians have currently just two roads for supply and support. We're talking about N20 and then 0524 road that goes from the city of Constantinople in the direction of Katerinovka, and the second road goes from the city of Kliban-Bykford in the direction of the city of Constantinople. And as you can see, both roads are already under Russian fire control. In this video we can see how Russian drone was flying above Ukrainian supply line, probably above positions that's main purpose was to secure the logistic, and the Russians attacked this territory. On the eastern flank we can see almost the same thing. Several strongholds, the main purpose of them is to secure the logistic, were under very heavy fire with the Russian FPV drones, which means that the Russians are trying to tighten the noose, and currently Ukrainians have no chances or less chances to bring their munition exactly in this pocket without losses. Now let's talk about N32 roads. During the previous 12 hours, we got lots of very important updates. The pro-Ukrainian sources confirmed that the Russians managed to break through another defense layer in this area and to shorten the distance to the next defense layer in this direction. According to these arrows and according to Deep State update and their report, the Russians during the previous 24 hours improved their positions in the pockets between Malinovka, Mirolyubovka, Novotoretsk, Elizavetovka, and shortened the distance to the village of Nikolaevka. Furthermore, according to information we have, the Russians managed to improve their positions in the direction of the settlement of Koptiva and Shevchenka-Pershe. When talking about this attack, the main purpose of the Russians is to establish complete control over the village of Novotoretsk, and according to the same report, the Russians improved their positions to the north of the village of Novalenovka toward the village of Rusin Yar. So this is very important because Ukrainians understand and they realize that the area to the northwest of N32 road is the key area of Ukrainian defense of the entire Donbass. So if Ukrainians lose control over this territory, I'm not talking about physical control, if they lose their logistic in this area under the pressure of Russian FPV drones, this is going to be the beginning of the biggest disaster ever for Ukraine as a state as well. And as you can see exactly from this area, we got lots of icons during the previous 12 hours. hours. First of all, we have video how the Russians were attacking logistic roads and buildings along the logistic roads that Ukrainian used probably for safety purposes. And another video came to us from the settlement of Volodymyrovka. In this video, we can see damage or even destroyed bridge in this area, and as a result of probably missile strike or FAB strike, the bridge was completely destroyed, and obviously it's damaged the Ukrainian logistic. So as you can see, the bridge was destroyed right on the way towards the villages of Popov Yar and Poltavka, where the Russians are attacking. But the most important videos are coming from the settlement of Dobropolya. So, and in these videos we can see how Ukrainians are trying to build protection nets as fast as possible, as soon as possible, as fast as they can. In this video we can see how Ukrainian vehicles were moving through this corridor that was completely protected by these protection nets against Russian FPV drones. In this video we can see the same story, but we see that these roads were built even more significantly. We see dozens or tens of Ukrainian soldiers who 24 hours, 7 days a week are trying to improve these roads with the purpose to secure these logistic lines against Russian FPV drone attacks and missile strikes, probably, and artillery strikes as well. So as we discussed, this is exactly the next stage of the special military operation of 2025, when both the Russians and the Ukrainians will try to do everything they can with the purpose to create as many as possible of these corridors in every single direction. And this is exactly what the Russians are waiting for before the beginning of the second stage of the Russian Sumy offensive operation. They can't move further in the southern direction without the same nets, protection nets, to the north of the city of Sumy. The Russians basically can't bring weapons, can't bring tanks, vehicles further in the southern direction, because everything would be destroyed immediately by Ukrainian FPV drones. So improve this situation, they need those North Koreans engineers who can build these nets very fast, much faster than Ukrainians. And this is exactly what we're going to see during the second half of the 2025. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for your watching, subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.